What is up, everybody? The Hunter GT, and here we are with the comparison video between the Ace 400, the brand new machine from Garrett, their top of the line A series, and the Bounty Hunter Land Ranger Pro, their top of the line from their Pro series. Alright, so there are both of the detectors, one in black and red, one in yellow and black. And as we move up, we will see the aftermarket coils that come with them first. The 5-inch DD, straight off the Fisher F5, fully compatible with the Bounty Hunter Land Ranger Pro. And on the left, we have the Garrett 5x8 coil. It's actually 8 by 5.5, 5.5 inches wide and 8 inches long. So there are the aftermarket sniper type coils for those. And then we have the stock 11-inch DD from Bounty Hunter on the right, and the 11 by 8.5 DD coil for the Ace on the left there. So, what sort of differences do we get with these two machines? They both run about the same price. The Bounty Hunter is roughly $285 on Amazon, and most dealers are selling it anywhere from $300 to $400. The Garrett Ace 400, however, you can find it just about every dealer and every website, Amazon, eBay, for right at $340. So it's about $50 more than the Land Ranger Pro, but as you saw in the review, you do get the headphones, you do get the coil cover, and you do get the dust rainproof cover. I don't have those out here for this video, but so you get about $50 worth of accessories, meaning when you get down to the bare minimum, both of these detectors roughly are the same price. You're looking at about $280 to $290 for the detectors themselves when you get down to the bare minimums. All right. Now the difference is the Garrett 10 kilohertz, the Bounty Hunter 7.69 kilohertz, 7.7 let's say. So the Garrett is a little bit higher frequency. The Bounty Hunter has manual ground balance and a quick grab type ground balance. The Garrett is totally fixed. You cannot adjust the ground balance whatsoever. That is a huge positive for the Bounty Hunter, the Land Ranger Pro, and a pretty big negative for the Ace 400. In my terrible Colorado soil, as you saw in the review video, the Land Ranger Pro will actually detect a 6-inch quarter. It will sound off on it. ID is not great, but it will sound off on it, and even an 8-inch quarter, it will sound off every couple sweeps. The Garrett Ace 400 could not even handle a 4-inch quarter and nickel in my soil. It sounded off on the dime at certain angles, amazingly, but the quarter, it couldn't even touch it. I don't clean up my test bed perfectly or anything. I mean, I make sure there's no nails or anything, bits of iron like that. But in my terrible lead and iron mineralized soil, the Ace performed much worse than the Bounty Hunter Land Ranger Pro, just for the fact that it does not have that manual ground balance option like the Bounty Hunter. I'm going to get down here, get a little bit closer for the next part. Now, what else? The Bounty Hunter has a volume adjustment that the Garrett does not have. So you can actually adjust your volume on this. Let's take a look here. So there's volume, and as you can see, you can go from 10, and you can hear it get real low, down to 0. And then you can hear it get quite high there. All right, the Garrett is a fixed volume. You cannot adjust it. However, it does come with the headphones where you can adjust the volume on the wire, a little scroll wheel. So if you're using those headphones, you're all set. If you're not and you're wanting to use the speaker, you're basically getting one volume and that is it. So you can consider that a minus if you want. Doesn't really bother a lot of people from what I've seen. However, I do prefer having the volume adjustment on the Land Ranger Pro. I think it's better to have it than to not have it, basically is the way I look at it. Another thing I did not like about the Garrett, I'm getting the negatives of the Garrett out of the way right away. Another thing, it is quite nose heavy compared to the Land Ranger Pro. It is a ½ pound heavier, and a lot of that comes from this coil. This coil is roughly a ½ pound heavier than this 11-inch DD over here. The Land Ranger Pro is quite balanced. very well balanced. You can swing it all day, and the Garrett with that bigger coil, you can definitely tell a difference. I wouldn't call it a heavy detector. It comes in at 2.9 pounds, the Land Ranger Pro at 2.4 pounds. So there is a half-pound difference somewhere, and most of it is in that coil. It is quite a bit nose heavy. Now, another reason for it being so nose heavy is that, look at this, when we bring them together here, let's bring the foam hand, there we are, right side by side on the grips. Look at where the forearm cuff is. On the Bounty Hunter, it is quite a bit further back than it is on the Garrett. And the Garrett is adjustable. You can move it in about an inch, inch and a half, which would be even worse. I don't really like where it sits on my forearm. It sits right in the middle, a little bit forward. I'm 6 feet. I got some pretty long arms. And with this one, it just sits a little bit further back towards my elbow. Much prefer that over the Garrett Ace 400. That was, as soon as I picked it up, assembled it out of the box, I was thinking, whoa, it's really nose heavy. Much more so than the Land Ranger Pro that I am used to. So take that for a grain of salt. However, you know, take it with a grain of salt. If you're a smaller guy with short, stubby little T-Rex arms, I'm guessing the Ace 400 is not going to really matter to you. If you're a longer guy, taller guy with longer arms, Bounty Hunter, Land Ranger Pro, you're wanting something with a longer cuff like that, distance, much more preferred. Now, once I put the smaller 8x5.5 coil on, fixed it immediately. Swing it all day with that, not an issue. On the Land Ranger Pro, when you put the 5-inch coil from Fisher F5 on there, boy, it's feather light at that point. It's like you're not even holding anything in your hand at all. Build quality. Let's look at build quality real quick. I do like the build quality of the Ace 400 a little bit better. Definitely like these buttons that stick out. You can push them. They're really nice tactile feel. This is just those membrane style switches that you find on microwaves for the last 20 years, basically. Not really a fan of those compared to the Garrett. Do these work? Yes. A lot of people are having issues with the pinpoint button, me as well, and I've had a couple issues with holding down mode to stick to all metal. It won't stay in all metal, it'll actually just switch modes to the next mode for me. So not really a fan of the membrane style switches or buttons on the Land Ranger Pro. Garrett definitely takes the cake there. They definitely take the cake in build quality. It's a much sturdier machine. I just like the grip better. It's a real thick foam grip. It has this arm cuff strap if you like that. I don't really care for it, but the fact that it comes with it is really cool. The buttons take the cake. Takes 4 AA batteries. Land Ranger Pro takes a 9-volt. I do not have a preference there. They both last about 15 hours, so just doesn't matter to me. However, even from the coil is heavier for a reason, because I think it is built better. I do like the look of the coil and the build quality of the coil better than the 11-inch DD. I don't really care for the cheap little flimsy plastic fins on it. I really like the look of this one much better, and if I had to pick, I would pick the small coil. I wish I could swap it over and put a coil like this. So I plan on getting like a Nell sharpshooter that's 8x5 and putting it on the Land Ranger Pro eventually, even though I do have the 5-inch. I may even just selling that and you know, getting a little return back on the investment there. But build quality, I definitely prefer the Garrett over the Land Ranger Pro, and the Land Ranger Pro doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like a toy or anything like that. It's just that the Garrett is built very nice. I definitely prefer that. Volume, the user that the guy, you know, Bo Winkles from Treasure Net, can't thank him enough for sending me the Garrett Ace 400. He wants to know what the volume differences are between both the machines. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the Garrett here. Here we go. And 1 volume is all you get. So we're just going to do a quick recovery speed test with it here. So that's the volume. As you can see, recovery speed on the Garrett Ace 400, very good. Check out the review I put up for both of these machines. I'm not going to go in a ton of stuff like that, but as you can see, It's a pretty loud detector, and the recovery speed is quite nice. So let's check out the Land Ranger Pro volume here. And I know this isn't some high grade, high quality microphone that I'm using here with the decibel meter or anything like that. I'm just kind of using my ears. So volume up to 10 here, and let's hear the high tone on the Bounty Hunter. Very nice recovery speed as well. Both of these machines very nice on separation, very nice on recovery speed. The Ace does beat it on Monty's nail board test. I'm not going to go over that. You have to check out the reviews on the other videos if you want to see those. I just brought this out to kind of refresh my memory a little bit. The Garrett does unmask that penny a little bit better than this Bounty Hunter will. So, but anyways, on to the volume. I gotta be honest, they're pretty similar as far as volume. They're plenty loud. I can hear both of them. I have great hearing. The guy that sent me the Ace 400 to test for a week doesn't have the greatest hearing. I think that the high pitch of the Bounty Hunter is a little easier to hear for somebody, I would think, with headphones on or hard of hearing or something like that. Like if I had earplugs in, I think I could probably hear that high pitch of the Bounty Hunter a little easier than I could the bell tone of the Ace 400. So take that for what it's worth. I do think the Bounty Hunter has a higher pitch, and the Garrett may have a higher or equal volume, if that makes sense. So it's kind of hard for me to make a decision there on what is actually louder. I really wish I had like a decibel meter or something cool like that I could put them up against. So as you saw, very good on the recovery speed. Both detectors are damn fast. Separation, you can get, I'm not going to show you on camera here, guys. You're just going to have to trust me. I don't want this video to go forever. I can get both the coins about this far. So what are we looking at there? About 3 inches apart, 3.5 inches apart before they smear them together and pick it up as one signal, maybe even a little closer, about like that. Both of them are almost identical. I moved them over about 1/4 inch at a time, tested one, checked them both out, and then as soon as I moved it over, both of them failed at basically the same time. So take that for what it's worth. Nickels. The Garrett, let's take a look here at this nickel. I want to show you something on the ID. So here's a nickel, and let's go down to coin mode. So see how it jumps everywhere from 44. I'm about 2 inches up. It says 4 inches, but as you can see, I'm about 2 inches off the ground here. And you can see it goes everywhere from 44, 45, 47, 48. It jumps around quite a bit, just like a pull tab. Let's turn it off here. So it jumps around quite a bit. Now let's check out the Land Ranger Pro here. Oh, I just turned it off. It was already on. So let's check out the Land Ranger Pro and see what it does on the nickel. Now 35, 34 is what we're looking for on the nickel here. So you see it does go up to 36. Oh, let me raising it up about 4 or 5 inches there. Let me get right down on it like I was with the Ace here. So right down on it, about 2 inches off the ground here. See that? Even if I widen the swing a little, 34, 35. You get every once in a while I'll see a 33 or a 36. But look at that, 34, 35, even a 33 now every once in a while. We're starting to raise up a little bit there. So is it perfect? No. Does it bounce? Yes, it still bounces a little bit, but it's bouncing by 1 or 2 on the Land Ranger Pro, and on the Ace 400 it's bouncing, 4 or 5, I guess, wide. There was a nickel I found in the dirt. As soon as I took it out and put it on the surface, the Ace 400 would bounce clear out of the nickel range right beneath it into like the 30s, 29, 30, which is notched out. Now that brings me to my next point, notching on this. Discrimination and notching. When you have the Ace here, see if I can get it in the light here. So you notice, you saw in the review the squares here. Let me turn it this way so we can see. There we go. So you saw the squares here. When we disc something out with that top bar that's moving, and then I can make a square show up like that, or make it disappear on the lower bar, those squares are 8.25 wide. So when I'm notching something out, I'm notching in or out 8 segments on the 0 to 99 ID. Now with the Land Ranger Pro, let's stand up here so we can get it better. With the Land Ranger Pro, when I disc something in, look, I'm 1 by 1. I'm discing in 1 at a time on the ID. And same thing with notch. So here's my notch width. It's 1 at a time. And my notch where it's at, look at that. See, it's notching on top, 1 at a time. You can see it moving there, the little notch on top. Well, it's moving 1 at a time. When I go back to my width, look, I can widen it 1 at a time. V-brake on this. Something this has is a V-brake, something that Ace does not have. V-brake. It 1 at a time on the V-brake as well. So, very customizable on the Land Ranger Pro. My V-brake, my ground balance I can change by 1 at a time, my discrimination 1 at a time, my notches, my notch width, all 1 at a time. While on this, they're blocks of 8. Not really a fan of that. Another thing the Land Ranger Pro has is all metal mode. So you have an all metal VCO. This is 4 tones, low, medium, and high, and a VCO tone. This is your bell tone, a middle tone, a low tone, and then you got like an iron audio if you want to count that scratchy stuff as a tone. That is a bonus for the Ace. It does have iron audio where the Land Ranger Pro does not have iron audio. In my terrible soil, not really a feature I can utilize. However, if you are in mild or medium soils, you will like that iron audio on the Ace 400. It will tell a bottle cap from a dime. Something to note about that as well. A bottle cap will ring up as a dime, 84 on the Ace 400. On the Land Ranger Pro, a bottle cap will ring up as a quarter. Okay, so it rings up on the Ace in the dime range, it rings up on the Land Ranger Pro in a quarter range. I thought that was kind of interesting. So, kind of interesting. Alright guys, well, trying to think of some other differences here. Let me switch hands here, holding on to my camera with the Kung Fu G.I. Joe grip there, hands getting sore. Trying to think of some other differences. Battery life is pretty similar. Like I said, one uses 4 A's, the Garrett 4 double A's. The Land Ranger Pro uses a 9 volt. I use lithium ion rechargeables on those. They both last about 15-20 hours of battery time. I do prefer the Land Ranger Pro. You know, I've used the Land Ranger Pro here for 100 hours already. And the Garrett Ace 400, I've spent about 15-20 with it now. At the time of this video here. So I definitely prefer the Bounty. As of right now, if I had to grab one, it would be the Ace 400 just because it's still new and I still like playing with it. It is a good detector. It is very good. But the Land Ranger Pro is very good as well and arguably quite a bit better. Like I said, it does have the manual ground balance. You can adjust the notch, the discrimination by segments 1 at a time. It is a lighter detector by ½ a pound. It is not as nose heavy as the Ace. The arm cuff here does stick out a good 3 inches further. You know, so there's just small things like that that Garrett really could have hit a home run if they would have put manual ground balance and allowed you to notch in 1 at a time and really widened up that display. I mean, let's look at the IDs here, guys. Let's turn them both on. Let's see if they chatter with each other quite a bit. So look, so there's the ID here. Look at that. So see how big that 41 is and see how big everything looks on that. Well, on this, quite a bit smaller. Quite a bit smaller to read all the words and read everything on there. While on this, everything's, you know, ground grab, mode, your plus, your minus, your pinpoint, your power button. Everything's real nice and big. Let's turn it off there. If you know, the words on this are really quite small. The font on the LCD quite small. The ID especially, and that's what you're looking at 90% of the time, guys. You're looking at ID on these, and it is twice as big on the Land Ranger Pro. Your 0 to 99 display is twice as big on the Land Ranger Pro as it is on the Ace 400. So if you're a poor vision type person, you're definitely going to want the Land Ranger Pro. I think if you're hard of hearing as well, you're probably going to want the high-pitched beeps, the digital beep on the Land Ranger Pro over that bell tone that is just a little bit of a softer tone on the Ace 400. That's me personally. You can argue that all day. I don't know. I have really good hearing and really good vision. Thank you. You know, thank you God for that. But I don't know. I don't know as far as the audio goes. On the vision portion, Land Ranger Pro kicks butt on that. Twice as big as far as the 0 to 99. So it's lighter, it's easier to read, it goes deeper in terrible Colorado mineralized soil. They both air test right about the same. Air tests are within a ½ inch of each other on most objects, so nothing to report there. But yes, this does have manual ground balance, adjustable volume, it's lighter, it's easier to read, it's much more customizable with the V-brake, with being able to knot your notch width 1 by 1. I can notch out pull tabs on this and keep nickels in. I cannot do that on this machine. If I notch in nickels, I am notching in a ton of pull tabs as well, and I'm just going to have to rely on the ID, and the ID being so jumpy on nickels on this, if you're a park hunter, be prepared to dig a ton of pull tabs. I dug more pull tabs with this than I would ever care to. The Land Ranger Pro, I can eliminate pull tabs almost exclusively and still get nickels. So take it all with a grain of salt. This is just one man's opinion. You guys have probably been detecting and doing some rad stuff with your detectors a lot longer than I have. So thank you to Bowinkles yet again from Treasure Net for sending me this awesome Garrett Ace 400. I do like it. I think it has many more negatives than the Land Ranger Pro that cost basically the exact same amount. So there you go. Take it for what it's worth. I prefer the Bounty Hunter Land Ranger Pro. If I only had to choose one for the rest of my life, it would definitely get the nod. However, this last week I've had the Ace 400 has been fantastic, and it's given me some of the most fun I've ever had metal detecting. So, you know, I don't really throw out review numbers or anything like that, but I consider the Ace 400 like an 8 out of 10. And the Land Ranger Pro like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 if I had to give it a perfect score. It's not perfect. The Land Ranger Pro is not perfect. So I'm just saying, if the Land Ranger Pro is a 10 out of 10, the Garrett's right behind it at like an 8, okay, 8.5. It really is a good detector. It really does go nice and deep. The videos prove it. Users have proven it. Both of these will hit a quarter at 8 inches in mild to medium soils. In my terrible Colorado soil, the Garrett won't hit a 4-inch quarter and a 4-inch nickel and a 4-inch dime just for the fact it doesn't have the ground balance feature that the Land Ranger Pro has, so it will go down just that extra inch or two compared to the Garrett. Now, it's not like the Land Ranger Pro is reaching down real deep in my terrible soil. Its ID is a mess at anything past 4 inches to 6 inches. So take it all with a grain of salt. There it is, guys, the Garrett Ace 400. The Bounty Hunter Land Ranger Pro. You can have them both for roughly the same amount if you strip off the accessories. Unfortunately, Garrett sells it as a package deal, and you have to come with all the accessories whether you like them or not. So $340 for the Ace, $285 for the Land Ranger Pro. The Hunter GT signing off. I will see you on the next video.